The sound of a deep hum woke Captain Ryan Hawley from his sleep, or at least he thought it was sleep, because the last thing he remembered was flying his small ship through the outer rim of the Andrus sector, scanning for mineral-rich asteroids. And then nothing. He opened his eyes slowly, blinking against the soft glow of lights that danced along the curved ceiling above him. The air was warm, heavy with a sweet, strange smell. It was not the recycled air of his ship. It felt alive, almost breathing with him. Ryan tried to move, but found his wrists bound by thin bands of shimmering silver. They weren't metal, at least not the kind he knew. They felt warm against his skin, as if they had a pulse of their own. His heart quickened. And his training told him he was in trouble. The door in front of him slid open without a sound, and in stepped the most striking figure he had ever seen. She was tall, taller than him by a head. Her hair shimmered like molten silver. Her skin glowed faintly with a pale light, and her eyes deep, shining. The color of liquid starlight locked on him with an intensity that froze him in place. "You can't leave now, human," she said softly, yet her voice carried the weight of unshakable certainty. "You're mine for eternity." Ryan's mouth went dry. He had faced pirates, smugglers, and even border skirmishes with alien raiders. But this was different. This wasn't a threat in the way he understood. It felt personal, dangerous in a way he couldn't fight with weapons. He forced his voice to stay steady. "Where am I? Who are you?" She took a step closer, her presence overwhelming the room. "My name is Leora," she said, "and you are aboard my vessel, far from your home." Ryan scanned the room quickly, noting no visible controls, no seams in the walls. The technology was beyond anything he had seen in the Galactic Coalition. It was smooth, organic, almost grown rather than built. "You took me," Ryan said, trying to sound more confident than he felt. "I saved you," Leora replied, tilting her head slightly. "Your ship was drifting. Your systems failing. You would have died within minutes." His memory scrambled to catch up. He remembered a bright flash outside his cockpit, the ship's alarm screaming, then darkness. Could she be telling the truth? "Thank you," he said cautiously. "But you can release me now." She smiled faintly, and it was not a smile of agreement. "No, Captain Hawley, that is not how this works." Ryan's pulse spiked. He tested the restraints again, but they only tightened in response. It felt as though they could read his intentions. "What do you want from me?" he asked, his voice lower now. Her eyes never left his. "A bond," she said simply. "One that will never be broken." The word hung in the air like a weight. Ryan didn't fully understand, but every instinct told him it was not something he could accept lightly. He stayed silent, hoping she would reveal more. She stepped closer until he could see the faint patterns in her skin. "Glowing like constellations, my people," she said, "are bound to one another through life and beyond. We live for centuries, and when we choose a partner, it is forever." Ryan's mind spun. "I'm not one of your people," he said. Firmly, her smile deepened. "That is why you are special." Before he could respond, the walls around them shimmered, and Ryan heard voices soft, whispering, speaking in a language he didn't understand. He caught only fragments in translation through his implant. "The bond begins. He is the one. It is done." Temperature in the room rose, and he felt something on his left forearm. He looked down to see a faint silver mark appearing, glowing under his skin. He tried to rub it away, but it only burned brighter. "What is this?" he demanded. "It is the first sign," Leora said calmly. "Our lives are now linked." Panic clawed at him. He had been in dangerous situations before, but this felt like a trap he couldn't see the edges of. "I don't agree to this," he said, struggling harder against the restraints. "You don't have to agree," she replied. "It has already begun." The humming in the walls grew louder, matching the beat of his heart. His breathing quickened, and he could almost feel her presence inside his mind, a whisper of thoughts that weren't his own. "What happens now?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. She leaned close, so close he could feel the warmth of her breath. "Now," she said, You learn what eternity means. Ryan's mind screamed for a way out, but deep inside, a strange part of him won. He didn't recognize was curious, even drawn to her. He didn't know if it was the bond or something else entirely. The door slid closed behind her as she left the room, and Ryan was alone again, except for the soft hum and the glowing mark on his arm. The feeling of being watched never left, and somewhere deep in the ship, the whispers continued, calling his name. Ryan sat alone in the strange room, his eyes fixed on the silver mark glowing faintly on his arm. It didn't hurt now, but it pulsed slowly, in time with his heartbeat, like it was alive. He tried to think of it as just some alien trick, some way to scare him, but deep inside he knew it was more. The door slid open, and Liara stepped inside. She carried no weapons, but Ryan felt like she didn't need any. Her presence alone was enough to hold him in place. In her hands she carried a small, smooth vessel filled with a glowing blue liquid. "It is time," she said softly. "Time for what?" Ryan asked, his voice sharp. "For the next step of our bond," she replied, placing the vessel on a table that seemed to rise from the floor itself. "The ritual cannot be delayed." Ryan shook his head. "I'm not doing anything until I know what it means." She moved closer, her silver hair catching the light. "You are already part of it," she said. "The bond has begun, and if we do not complete it, the mark will consume you." Ryan froze. "Consume me?" "It will take your life," she said simply. "Your body will fail, and your mind will fade." He stared at her, trying to see if she was lying, but her eyes were steady, calm, too calm. "What's in that?" he asked, nodding at the glowing liquid. "It is the essence of my people," she explained. "A mixture of our life energy and the threads of our memory. When you drink it, your body will change. It will accept me as its anchor, and I will accept you." Ryan laughed bitterly. "And if I refuse?" She didn't smile. "Then you die, and so do I." That made him pause. "You die too?" "Yes," she said. "The bond is life shared, not taken. Once it begins, there is no one without the other." Ryan's mind raced. This wasn't just about control. If she was telling the truth, her life was tied to his as much as his was to hers. That made things more complicated. She held the vessel toward him. "Drink," she said, "and live forever." He didn't move. His instincts screamed to refuse, but another feeling, a strange pull in his chest, pushed him toward her. It was like the bond itself wanted him to accept. Liara knelt in front of him, her face close to his. "I chose you, human, not for your strength, but for your will. You will see what we can become." Against his better judgment, Ryan took the vessel. The liquid glowed brighter as it touched his skin. He raised it to his lips and drank. It was like swallowing lightning. The energy rushed through him, burning and freezing at the same time. His vision blurred, and the room seemed to melt away. He saw flashes of Liara's memories, her homeworld bathed in silver light, towering crystal spires, a sky filled with 3 moons. He felt her pain when her people fell to disease, her loneliness across centuries, her desperate hope when she found him. When his vision cleared, Liara was still there, her hand on his arm. The mark had spread across his skin in delicate silver lines, pulsing in rhythm with hers. "It is done," she whispered. "We are one now." Ryan pulled his arm back, but the warmth of her touch lingered. His body felt different, stronger, sharper, like the air carried more life than before. But along with it came a deep sense of connection, like an invisible thread tied him to her. "You've changed me," he said quietly. "Yes," she replied. "And I have changed too." In that moment, Ryan understood something frightening. If she died, he would feel it. If she suffered, he would suffer too. Their fates were no longer separate, and as much as he hated to admit it, a part of him didn't want to let go. The ship drifted silently through the endless dark, its hull glowing faintly like a living creature in the void. Ryan sat in the corner of his quarters, staring at the silver lines now etched into his skin. They pulsed slowly, in perfect rhythm. With Leora's breathing whenever she entered the room, he didn't want to believe it. But the bond was real. For days, she had avoided telling him why she had chosen him. Each time he asked, she would only say, "You will know when it's time." But Ryan's patience was running out. He had been a captain, a free man in the galaxy. Now, every moment felt like a cage made of silk, beautiful but inescapable, late into the artificial night cycle. Ryan slipped out of his room. The silver restraints were gone now. Leora trusted him not to run, or maybe she knew he couldn't. His footsteps were silent on the strange floor, the material absorbing sound like deep snow. He followed the faint hum of machinery until he reached a door that looked different from the rest. It was darker, edged in faint blue light, and as he stepped closer, the bond in his chest tightened. Warning him, the door slid open without a sound. Inside was a vast chamber filled with glowing threads of light suspended in the air. They twisted and danced like strands of living energy. At the center stood a tall black pillar, its surface covered in moving symbols. Ryan stepped closer. His translator implant struggled with the language, spitting out broken words. Records. Enemies. Forbiddance. Merge. He realized these were not decorations. They were data streams. This was the ship's core memory, and if he could read it, he might finally understand what had happened to him. As his fingers brushed the surface, the symbols flared and images flooded his mind. He saw humans not in peace talks or trade missions, but in battle against Leora's kind. Starships burning, worlds turning to ash, and faces twisted in fear and rage. The truth hit him hard. Humans and her people had been enemies, not allies. Centuries ago, the war had ended not with peace, but with isolation, her species sealing themselves away from the rest of the galaxy. Why would she bond with someone whose kind had once tried to destroy hers? The images shifted, showing a different horror. Leora's people, once strong and proud, now weakened, their numbers fading. He saw vast empty cities, silent halls, and bodies marked by a strange illness. The bond was not just tradition, it was survival. Ryan pulled his hand back, breathing hard. The chamber felt colder now. The pieces were falling into place. She hadn't saved him just to keep him. She had saved him because she needed him. A voice came from behind him, calm but sharp. "You should not be here." Ryan turned to see Leora standing in the doorway. Her silver eyes were unreadable, but her hands were clenched. "You knew," he said, his voice low. "You knew what humans did to your people." "Yes," she replied without hesitation. "And I chose you anyway. Why?" he demanded. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. "Because you are different. And because my people cannot survive without you." Ryan shook his head. "You mean without humans?" "No," she said, her gaze locking with his. "Without you." The bond pulsed in his chest, stronger than before, and he realized with a chill that he couldn't tell if the feeling was his own or hers in that moment. He understood something else. The eternal bond wasn't just about life and death. It was about control, about joining two beings until they couldn't tell where one ended and the other began. And he didn't know if he wanted to fight it, or if it was already too late. Ryan couldn't shake the images he had seen in the ship's core. The war, the illness, the desperation in Leora's people. It was all tangled together with him at the center. But no matter how much he claimed he was special, he couldn't accept living as someone's eternal prisoner. The next cycle, he waited until Leora left for the ship's navigation chamber. She didn't know he had been secretly watching her movements, memorizing the way the ship reacted to her touch. The bond still pulsed in his chest, but he had learned how to ignore the faint pull it gave toward her. Moving quickly, he slipped into the control corridor. The walls here were darker, lined with smooth panels that shimmered when he passed. In the center stood a console of swirling light. No buttons, no switches, just shifting patterns. He reached out, his fingers brushing the surface. The translator implant worked hard, flashing fragmented messages in his vision. Navigation. Star path. Override possible. This was it, his way home. Ryan's plan was simple. reroute the ship toward coalition space, send a distress signal, and let human patrols do the rest. The bond might still exist, but distance and time could weaken whatever hold Leora had over him. But as his hands moved through the light, the patterns shifted violently. The hum of the ship deepened, and a sharp pain stabbed through his chest. He gasped, clutching his arm, the silver lines on his skin blazed like fire. "You think you can run from me?" Her voice was behind him, calm, but with an edge like cold steel. Ryan turned slowly. Leora stood in the doorway, her eyes glowing brighter than he had ever seen. The air around her shimmered with heat. "This bond is not a cage," she said. Stepping closer, "It is life, and you would throw it away. It's not your choice." Ryan shot back, "It's mine." Her expression softened for a moment, and that was somehow worse than anger. "If you break the bond, we both die." She said, "Is that what you want?" He searched her face, trying to see if it was a lie. But the bond betrayed her. It carried the faint pulse of fear, real and raw. "I don't believe you," he said. Though his voice lacked certainty, Leora reached him in 2 strides, her hand closing over his arm. The fire in his skin dimmed instantly. The silver lines on their arms glowed in unison. "You feel it," she whispered. "You know it's true." Ryan yanked his arm free. But the pain returned the moment their contact broke. He staggered back, realizing something terrifying. The bond wasn't just in his mind. It was in his body, his heartbeat, his breath. Every part of him was linked to her. "You can't win this way," he said, his voice low. "I don't need to win," she replied. "We are already one." Before he could respond, the ship shuddered violently. Warning tones echoed through the air, and the lights shifted to deep red. Leora turned toward the console, her eyes narrowing. "They found us," she said. Ryan blinked. "Who?" "Enemies," she replied. "Ones who will kill us both if they can." The moment hung heavy. Ryan realized his plan to escape had just been replaced by a fight for survival, one he would have to face at her side. The ship shook again, harder this time. Ryan grabbed the edge of the console to steady himself. The red warning lights pulsed faster, painting the room in waves of crimson. Somewhere deep in the hull, the sound of weapons charging hummed like distant thunder through the viewport. Ryan saw them, sleek black ships sliding out of the darkness, their surfaces reflecting no light. They moved like predators, silent and certain, closing in from every angle. "Who are they?" Ryan asked, his voice tense. Leora's hands moved through the navigation light patterns in a blur. "Scavenger clans," she said. "They hunt the weak, tear apart ships, and sell what's left." Her eyes flicked to him. "And they will not spare you because you're human." The bond in Ryan's chest pulsed faster, matching the rising tension. He didn't know if it was fear, adrenaline, or something else entirely. But every instinct screamed that running wasn't an option. The first blast hit, a beam of searing energy striking the outer shield. The deck lurched under their feet. Ryan stumbled, but Leora caught his arm. Her touch steadied him instantly, and a strange rush of heat surged through his veins. "What was that?" he gasped. She didn't answer. Instead, she handed him a long, curved weapon, unlike anything he had seen. The metal was black but alive with faint silver lines that pulsed in time with his own heartbeat. "The bond gives you strength," she said quickly. "Use it, or you will die." Before he could protest, the wall on their left exploded inward. Shards of glowing metal spun across the room, and 3 tall figures in jagged armor stepped through the smoke. Their movements were sharp, insect-like, each holding a blade that shimmered with poison green light. One lunged at Leora, but Ryan moved without thinking. His body reacted faster than his mind. The black-silver weapon in his hand cut through the attacker's blade like glass. The alien staggered back, a bright flash of energy bursting from the wound. Ryan's breath caught. He had never moved that fast before, never struck with such precision. The weapon felt like an extension of his arm. Another attacker came from behind. Ryan spun, blocking the strike effortlessly. His muscles burned with a strange new power. Every move felt guided, as if an invisible hand was directing him. Leora fought beside him, her own weapon flowing through the air in deadly arcs. For a moment, they moved as one, her strikes opening space, his closing it. The bond thrummed in perfect rhythm. More scavengers poured in. The corridor was chaos, flashes of light, the clash of metal, the heavy thud of bodies hitting the deck. Ryan didn't have time to think, only act. When the last attacker fell, silence returned. The air smelled of burnt metal and something sharp, almost electric. Ryan's chest heaved, and the silver lines on his skin glowed brighter than ever. Leora looked at him with something between surprise and pride. "You've awakened it," she said softly. "Awakened what?" he demanded, still catching his breath. "The full strength of the bond," she replied. "It's only the beginning." Before Ryan could respond, the ship shuddered again. This time, the impact was deeper. The scavengers had not been defeated. They had only been the first wave. Leora's gaze hardened. "Stay with me, Ryan," she said. "The next battle will decide if either of us lives to see another sunrise." The battle dragged on for what felt like hours, but eventually the scavenger fleet broke apart. Scattering into the void, the ship's shields flickered weakly, and the air was heavy with the smell of scorched metal. Ryan leaned against the corridor wall, his weapon still in his hand. His arms ached, but not from exhaustion, more from the strange energy that had flowed through him. It still lingered, humming beneath his skin. Leora stood a few feet away, silent, staring out through the cracked viewport at the distant stars. Her silver hair was tangled, her armor scorched, but her eyes, those impossible glowing eyes, were steady. "You fought like one of us," she said quietly, not turning to face him. "I didn't have a choice." Ryan replied, his voice low. "You put me in this." "Yes," she admitted, "I did." Her honesty caught him off guard. He had expected denial, another half-truth. But instead, she stepped closer, her voice carrying a weight that made the air feel heavier. "My people are dying, Ryan," she said. "Every cycle. More of us are lost. Our lifespans are long, but we cannot create new life as we once could. The illness has taken that from us." Ryan frowned. "And you think bonding with me changes that?" "It already has," she said. "The bond is more than a link, it is a merging of what we are. When you fought, your strength became mine, and mine became yours. When you breathe, I breathe. When you live, I live." He shook his head. "That sounds less like life and more like chains." Leora stepped closer, close enough that the warmth of her presence seeped into him through the bond. "Chains can bind," she said, "or they can hold two people together so they don't drift apart." Her words cut through him more than he wanted to admit. He thought of the way they had moved in battle, the way they had defended each other without thinking. The bond hadn't just made them stronger, it had made them complete. But then another thought hit him, cold and sharp. "If I walk away, if I find a way to break this, what happens to you?" She didn't hesitate. "I die, and you're willing to risk that?" Her eyes softened. "I was willing to risk it the moment I chose you." Silence filled the corridor, broken only by the distant hum of damaged systems. Ryan wanted to hate her for taking his freedom, but the bond carried something deeper, now a weight of her pain, her fear, her hope. It wasn't just his life she had tied to hers. It was her entire future. He turned away, trying to shut it out, but the pull in his chest wouldn't let him. His voice was barely more than a whisper. "I don't know if I can stay." "Then don't decide now," she said gently. "But know this, if you leave not just me, but the only chance my people have to survive." The bond pulsed. Once, deep and steady, and Ryan realized with a chill that her heartbeat was now the same as his. The days after the battle passed in a blur. The ship moved slowly now, its once perfect hum replaced by the uneven rhythm of damaged systems. Outside the viewport, stars drifted by like silent watchers. Ryan spent most of his time in the observation chamber, staring at the infinite dark. He had been free once, commanding his own vessel, answering to no one. Now every breath he took was shared. Every heartbeat echoed in another. Leora joined him quietly. She didn't speak at first, simply standing beside him, her presence warm and steady. The bond pulsed between them like a quiet whisper neither of them could ignore. "You've been thinking," she said softly. "I have," Ryan replied, not looking at her. "And?" she asked. He exhaled slowly. "I've been trying to figure out if this is something I can live with." "And?" she repeated, her voice calm but carrying the weight of hope and fear. Ryan finally turned to face her. "When the scavengers came, I fought because I didn't want to die," he said. "But I also fought because I didn't want you to die." Her eyes brightened, the silver within them flickering like distant lightning. "The bond works both ways," she said. He nodded. "I thought I'd hate that, but it's different now." His voice dropped lower. "It's not just the bond anymore." For the first time, Leora's composure faltered. "Then you've made your choice?" Ryan took a deep breath. "Yes," he said, "I'm staying." Her gaze softened, and in that moment, the bond flared not as a chain, but as something alive. It flowed through him like sunlight after endless night, filling the spaces he hadn't known were empty. The silver lines on his skin glowed brighter, weaving intricate patterns across his arm and chest. Leora's marks did the same. The glow spread between them until it formed a bridge of light, linking them in the air. "It is sealed," she whispered, "from now until the stars fade. You are mine, and I am yours." Ryan looked out at the endless void, but it no longer felt cold or empty. Wherever she went, he would go. Wherever he stood, she would stand beside him. The galaxy was vast, dangerous, and full of unknowns, but he no longer faced it alone. Eternity had begun.